It'll take a moment. I'm just recording. Morning, everyone. It's Chantal
and I'm Rodine. Welcome to Art Jam for Healing.
Yay! I can't tell you, we're both so excited. It's sort of, I love the way it's come about, and we always have a little chit chat beforehand. So we need to center ourselves because today we're going to be talking about, ta-da, Rodine.
We are going to talk about the fugly stage in art and how that actually connects to healing when you're healing from trauma or just spiritual healing, and how they're so similar and how they tie so beautifully together. So,
yes,
welcome.
Yes, thank you. And I think it came about because after last week, because what happens is we share with you.
Sorry. I just switched the phone so I could see comments.
No, that's
and
right.
I forgot to turn the volume down. When I think I have it all coordinated. No.
Something else. So this is again the ugly stage of technology. We can laugh about that. And I really love how this came about because because we do 20 minutes live and then Rodine and I carry on for another hour because that's what we wanted to do in the first place. And then you talked about, this is what was really interesting, why we thought we'd share what came up afterwards to share it with you this week. I'm going to be doing, because I've got my visual pep here, and I'm going to be doing what you call neurographics, even though I'm very new to it, and I'll explain it after because I want Rodine to do that. That's what I'm going to be doing when I'm looking down. I'm going to be creating this, and every now and again, I will show it to you. So let's get started, Rodine.
Awesome. So the fugly stage in art is, it's the middle of a piece of work where you look at it and it just looks freaking ugly. So it's fugly. And at that point, you step back and often, that's where you go, you don't have an objective view of it really. Right. And when I hit that stage, I have to just step away because I just think it's ugly and I think I've wrecked it. And yet I've learned that if I go and muck around too much when I'm feeling like that, it really does then kind of end up ugly. So I have to step back and just walk away for a little bit, do something else. And sometimes that can be for days. And you get to be comfortable with having a piece of art that you're working on just not be what you've imagined in your head. And it's really it can be uncomfortable until you do realize that, it doesn't have to be finished right now. I don't have to have the answers right now. I don't have to know how it's going to turn out right now. And it can be different, and that's okay. And
yes.
Go on, right?
Yes.
And that's life, right? You things don't always look in that moment the way you thought they would, and that's okay. And it's okay to feel uncomfortable or to feel out of sorts about it. So
yes, and it's interesting you say that because I've just started my neurographics and I thought I'd use a Sharpie that was good. And what's come up is the lines haven't come up quite the way I wanted them to. They've come up very, so I'm feeling here going, oh man, so I'm going over them. So again, it's really interesting how it tests you that something that simple can actually make you, I think, oh God, I'm not getting it right. It's not exactly what you're talking about. It's not coming out the way I want it to come out. And it's meant to be perfect straight away.
Yes.
And
I just started.
You just started? Yeah. And sometimes we have a lag, everyone, and because we get excited, particularly myself, I shouldn't speak for Rodine, we sort of jump over. Well, I jump in and over, so I've got to learn to hold myself back because there's just such goodness here that we're talking about and sharing. And I think, like you said, it's how do we learn as human beings to sit with discomfort, particularly if you've gone through a really tough time, whether that be trauma or grief or illness or something that's happened. that has turned your life upside down. That has completely shattered you.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to stay in the present moment when I know for me, all I wanted to do was go back to where I was or who I was. Because staying in this moment with all the emotions, for me, it was trauma, complex PTSD. And I didn't get it at first. I've been back to see my psychologist. I'm talking about it more as a supervisor to help me write my memoir. And she explained to me, I was so dissociated for a few years. And I was functioning, but I was simply not here. It was too big. It was too painful.
Yeah. That's, so when I think of the fugly stage, sometimes that fugly stage in real life healing is longer. It can be years, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. This is what we need to tell us. I mean, when you're in it, you don't want to hear that. Because all you want to do is be out the other end, either where you were, because you don't know where you're going to be, and you have no idea who you're going to be.
Yeah.
And is this going to happen? So yes, so that is seriously a fugly, ugly, horrible, messy stage. Yet at the same time, when you're in it, we also, well, I know I used things, I just didn't want to be there. It was too hard. So then it comes into, I was pretending. I was trying not to be in this pain. You know, I was trying to not be in this pain and trying to be normal. I mean, what is normal? But, you know, you're trying to make out that, oh, yes, everything's happening. I'm getting out of bed, even though getting out of bed was hard. I'm having a shower, but that was hard. Everything was hard.
Yeah.
You know?
That thinking of having a fugly stage that long, when you continue to work, so even with art, when you continue to work or you allow it to still process, it's like it runs in the back of our minds. And I think sometimes our minds then find the solution for us if we can be okay with it, like I said, being uncomfortable, right? Something will come up and we'll go, oh, there's that, right? As the risk, I think, is that disconnecting and, like you said, going back to that comfort zone, right? It would be like if I hit the fugly stage with art and just decided there was nothing else that could be done and took the piece down and threw it out, right? And that would be stepping back into my comfort zone, right?
Yes.
Which not healthy, not fulfilling, it feels worse than the fugly stage, right?
Yes.
But it's getting used to shifting our perspective, right? Moving out of the conditioning that we've had, that things do have to be a certain way. And especially, I think, I know for me, getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, that took a lot of work.
Yes.
To not distract, to not, you know.
Exactly.
Distraction can be all kinds of different things. And whatever that is for people, that distraction though, then that's where we detach, right? And disconnect. We lose faith. It's such a tricky spot, really.
And you're right, it is a tricky spot. And I can remember a few years ago reading a very good book by Pema Chodron. I actually like her work. She's an American Buddhist. And it's when things fall apart, that when you, and they suppose, and I also learned this from the 12-step program, Adult Children for Alcoholics, and Al-Anon, and that is that you've got to hit your rock bottom. So it's like you have to hit that. To hit that low, you've got to be able to stay there, because that's when it happens. But to actually hit that rock bottom and stay there when, as you said, it's so uncomfortable, that is the hardest thing to do. So we use all sorts of distractions. That could be substance abuse, it could be sex, it could be shopping, it could be whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Because we actually don't want to stay there. Yes, exactly. Scrolling. I think they call it
Like,
cluster scrolling, don't they?
yeah. Oh, I use that one for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I. And sometimes it makes it worse, because if I'm not feeling in a good mood, I'm going, oh, then I start comparisonitis.
That's true.
Like, hello, how mature am I now?
That's true. Oh boy, have I done that, right?
Yep.
Oh,
And it's so easy to do, because what you're doing, you think you're doing something good for yourself, but in fact you're not. So as you said, it's how do you stay with the feelings in your body? And look, initially it was interesting. So I've been thinking about what we were talking about, and some other things that I'll be sharing at another time, is that it comes from within the body. You need to stay in the body for it to allow it to release. But when you're in that really fugly stage, you actually do need support.
yes.
I know I needed a therapist. Some people don't believe in that. I definitely do. A counselor, therapist, but in my case, it was good. She was trauma trained, but also lived experienced. Because you really need to have someone who can hold you in that space. I mean, she held me for quite a few years, as did my GP. He held me. I think if I'd done any embodiment work, which is what they're talking about now, you know, because I've heard that, it's not just about talk therapy, this, that, you have to go into your body. If I'd gone into my body or been taken into my body at that point, I would have blown my gasket. I didn't feel safe in my body. I didn't know what was going on. I was too traumatized. I was too out there. I did have some massages, but only later on, because I couldn't even bear touch, because it not only I got triggered into fibromyalgia, but it was too much. It was too overwhelming. So I think
That's okay. That's interesting, because I think if people have been following my feed, I'm on vacation visiting my brother in Vancouver. He lives almost downtown Vancouver. And it's interesting that you mentioned the touch, right? For me, it was also just the energy of being around other people. That to me, and because I was teaching, I mean, I had to go and do my job. So I kind of armored up to go and do that when I had to, right?
yes.
Until I couldn't really even do that. And I realized that, like, now that since I've been out here, because I've been out, I've been exploring, I've been walking around a lot, and it dawned on me that I'm coming out of that stage where the energy of other people felt too much, right? Like it felt like sometimes literally just being poked, right?
Yeah.
And as I've been out exploring, I'm like, I just kind of realized that it felt nice. Like it felt good to be out, that people's energy wasn't impacting me. It was so fascinating because I hermited, right? I cocooned in the fugly stage. I had to cocoon.
Yeah.
Because it was just too much, right? And here I am, and I'm out, and I'm talking to strangers, and I mean, I'm having a blast. And I went, look at that. Is it, how far you come.
Yes, exactly. And what I find interesting is that sometimes you don't, until you look back, you don't realize. See, at the time, I didn't realize I needed to cocoon. So part of me did, and part of me didn't, because like you said, and I've actually, what I'm going to do, everyone, I'm going to actually put my YouTube channel, the playlist to trauma, because I've got videos that I've done about what is trauma and the physical, emotional, and signs of it, because this is one of them, is that noise, particularly when you had PTSD, noise becomes too much, people become too much, energy becomes too much, and you startle easily. So like you, and I do think for me, I agree with you, it's showing you how far you come, but for me, it meant also I felt safe in the world, but also safe in my body. I felt safe to be able to go out again.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, I couldn't get in the car. For a long time, I just didn't feel safe. What if something happened? Because that's, again, that you've got to really learn not to dramatize or create scenarios. Yeah. But for a long time, I was stiff. What if I get hit again? What if something happens? Because I had no resilience. I had nothing. So I was so raw and exposed. So anywhere I went, I sat in the corner. And also in a corner where there was a door to escape. Now, for someone who's traveled the world, who is gregarious, who is out there, this was like, what has happened to me? Because I could only sit there and I could hardly talk. I'd shake quite often and be in tears because I was so relieved that I'd arrived where I was meant to be, particularly with business. It's such a good look when you're walking in as the presenter and you're in tears.
Yeah.
No, at the time it was very traumatic, but at the same time, it was women came up and said, thank you for being, because it's about how can we be raw and open? How can we just say, this is what it's like? This is what it can be like.
I find the describing much easier. I couldn't, like, after the fact.
Yes.
I couldn't, and that was a part of the problem. I didn't know how to explain to anybody how I really felt or what was really going on. I couldn't put it in words.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a way that would have made sense to anybody.
Yeah. Oh, look, and I agree. And this is why in the end, because also my person, and this is also, you get driven. I made a point once I was feeling better and had better concentration. I went back to the number one, I did a counseling course because I wanted to get more skills and understanding. Then went back to my, as I said, psychologist or counselor. She's my supervisor because I needed to find the words. I wanted to find the words. I wanted to understand what had happened. And that's part of also processing, but you also can get addicted to that. I read everything I could, Rodine. I listened to everything I could.
Yeah.
But in a way, that was part of the healing for me because suddenly it's like, oh, that's why. Oh, that's why. Oh, that's okay. It's not abnormal. It's normal for what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And there was such a could feel my whole body going, tick, tick, tick. And also, I don't know about you, but when I finally, she gave me the diagnosis pretty quickly, but I didn't get it. When she finally said to me, you have complex PTSD, there was this like a relief. There's a reason here.
Yeah.
I'm not going insane. I'm not off my rocker. I'm not,
Yeah. I felt the same way. It was a relief for sure.
It is a relief, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think at that point, then finally, because she said she held me for quite a few years, she said, what I did was, as a therapist, she's learned that the biggest thing about going to a therapist is, and I can see that now, is being held and creating trust in a relationship. So she said, what I did for you was I allowed you to talk and talk. I didn't do any what you call challenge. I didn't quit because I just couldn't do it. I was so defending myself, and I'll talk about that another time. That she said, I couldn't do that with you for quite a few years. And then slowly, she said, because she's skilled, slowly she said, I could start then questioning you, pushing you a little bit out to start helping you reframe. Then we could start doing a lot more in the body work, coming into the body.
Right.
So it's been interesting to look back at the process of what happens. And like you, it's how do you put words into it? So now she's helping me find the words and explain it to me, which I'm actually, for me, finding, I love the learning aspect. Now that I'm back and my concentration's back and I don't have that foggy, messy brain, it's just so exciting.
It is, isn't it?
And then of course I want to share it with the world because it's like, everyone, this is what's happening. This could be happening to you in your own way, It's just such a relief. Such a relief,
It is. Yep.
And that's why I'm so glad we are doing these art jams, because it's creating conversation, you and I talking, those who are watching, to hear. And not only, even if you haven't had trauma yourself or PTSD or something like that, you might have had something, but it might help you understand someone else. because often we don't understand, oh, what are you talking about that for? Oh, why are you getting startled? Or why, whatever. It's like, no, let's create the conversation to create understanding so we know how to hold someone.
Mm-hmm.
And as they say, the trendy word is trauma aware.
Yeah. Well, even if someone doesn't necessarily or isn't necessarily going through trauma or healing from trauma, even when you've had a bad day, it's kind of nice to know that, that's just a little bit of fugly, and it's
Yes.
okay, and it'll pass, right?
Yeah. And thank you for that, because I know I get a little bit stuck in the trauma because that's been such a big part of my life. So yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And what I love about how this came about, but because you, as you said, you're with your brother, not at home. Everyone, you might put it up. Last time we showed what Rodine was doing was art. And do you want to explain how it came about? I think we did in the beginning, but what actually the process for you, what happened, when you looked at that?
Well, there was the painting that I was working on. I had a small tree in the foreground. And as I was working on it, that tree just was not, it just was not working. It was blending too much kind of into the background, and I tried to lighten it up. I played with it, and it's like, it's just not going to be a tree. It's just not. And so instead of forcing it to be something that it wasn't going to be, it's like, okay, I just played with it, and it ended up just being a part of the background, like a part of the stony outcroppings and stuff. And that was okay. That it disappeared. It didn't need to be a tree. And that I listened to what the painting wanted, right? It's like, okay.
Yes.
So you don't want to be a tree. I got it. I can do this. It's okay, right?
And what I liked about, I'm glad you brought up, because that's what you said. You allowed the art, the painting and the brushwork, whatever, to speak to you.
Yeah.
And I love that, because again, just before we started, we were talking about needing to feel safe and having everything controlled, having everything be perfect. That takes also courage and strength and confidence to be able to go, okay, it's not meant to be that, it's meant to be this. Now, it might sound obvious to some people, but it's not when you've had doubt, lost your sense of self. That can be a huge turnaround. That small tree, for me, it gave me this big wow.
Yeah.
It's not underestimating, those small moments.
No. It's that reminder to us that we can totally change direction and have it all be okay, or have it be even better. And isn't that just even in life, isn't that something? Often, what is it? Life is happening for you.
Yeah.
Right. And even though it might not seem, that challenge may not seem good in the moment, but it always leads you out often to something even better. I think I've even said that before, right? So that letting go and just allowing kind of opens things up.
It does, and because it does. But as you said, I think for me, I had to learn to come to that place. Again, for me, it always comes back to safety. And what I also needed to learn was to have hope that I could see a future and possibilities. So like you said, there could be something better. And because this is also explained, when you've had trauma, you become immediate, you become impulsive, you're right here. So to be able to go, something better could happen. You understand it perhaps logically, you have the knowledge, but how to bring that into your body to actually trust that, okay, it's not meant to happen this way. How can I just stay with myself, be in my body, and allow it to unfold? So like you did, I know I'm going on, but it was such a big thing for me to see that. And then when we talked about it afterwards,
Yeah.
I was like, wow. Because that is when you are healing or learning to come back into life, to come back. They're the small things that can often be the big wow moments. They're the small things that we often don't celebrate. Because it's like, oh yeah, but not realizing that is big. And that now you can just do that. I suppose you can just do that quite easily now in aspects of your life. Do you feel that now?
Yeah, it's definitely easier. It's not it doesn't hit me like a wall, right?
Yes.
Or like I walked into a wall. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. So change course or sit with it, let it percolate. And it's much easier now for me to know that there's some other solution.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's how I am now. And I'm loving it because there's a freedom in that. There's a freedom like in my life. There's a freedom in that in my business, how I run my healing business. There's a real freedom that it will happen, unfold, because I do get impatient. In the best of times, I want it now, not tomorrow, next week. I want it now. Yeah. That's fear-based versus faith-based too. So yeah, it's it hit me last, as I said, and then things unfolded this week as a consequence, which was really interesting. So, oh my God, I could go on and on, but what have you been doing as we come sort of to the end of this session? And anyone who has been watching or comes to the replay, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube, please leave messages or comments if you feel called to become part of the conversation, because this is what this is about, is the conversation. And if you wish to share art, do. So this is, I don't know what you've been doing, but this is sort of where I've been going with mine.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, thank you. And I need to do things that are easy.
I love that with the color. And all I brought was my sketchbook and pencils. So
oh, I love that. So yes, love it. Love it.
That's what I've been working on while we were yakking.
Yeah.
Doodling is kind of fun. I forgot because I don't often work with pencil. It's kind of nice just to be playing around with pencil and shading, and that's pretty neat.
It is fun, and it can just come alive and just allow things to come. That's what I'm finding now in my life. It's just there's this freedom, as I said to you, this flow, fluidity that I didn't expect. That was a really beautiful side of coming out the other side, like coming into the light was, oh, wow. So I'm in that wow at the moment. So thank you everyone for being here with us, and we look forward to seeing you all next time. And as mentioned, please reach out or comment or whatever, because it's not just about us, it's about you and that beautiful energy that we're creating together. Bye.
Bye for now, everybody.